paper cuts, and in today's super soaraway selection of the press, it's another bumper week in the Champions League, with British sides putting smiles on the faces of supporters everywhere by losing to their clubs. Man City, for example, shocked losers on Wednesday at the Amsterdam Arena in a game which proved why City would be rubbish cleaners, because you're supposed to wipe the floor with Ajax rather than the other way round. Headlines here. Ajax stuns City, says Algemeen Dagblad. Using tactics out of Johan Cruyff's playbook, the Dutch side produced a huge surprise. The mighty millionaires from Manchester lose to a financial dwarf. It's as if a Trabant had won a race with a Mercedes. Crazy. Unless Michael Schumacher was driving the Mercedes, of course. Well, the Telegraph, meanwhile, says Ajax will count again. People will respect our name once more, says the paper. They reckon the figures over the respective costs of the two first 11s have been exaggerated, but they say even allowing a £16 million price tag for Christian Eriksen, City's reserves are still worth way more than the entire Ajax squad. A more important stat, they say, is the fact that Ajax had 7 homegrown players on the field. City only 1, and it showed. Dutch paper advocating grow your own then. Well, meanwhile, there have plenty of happy folk over in the Ukraine this week are singing, perhaps, after Shakhtar's win over Chelsea on Tuesday. A major win, this, for the Miners, according to laugh-a-minute local paper Fakti I Komenti. A page of Ukrainian football history has been written, they intone. Shakhtar have shown they can play with the giants of Europe. It will be interesting to see the return leg on the 7th of November, the day of the great October Socialist Revolution, if anyone remembers that, they say. November the 7th, Rio Ferdinand's birthday, of course, and I think that's what they were referring to. Well, while English sides were struggling all over the shop, by contrast, it's been a triumphant week for Germany. Bayern beating Lille, Dortmund defeating Madrid, and of course Schalke destroying the illusions of the few Arsenal fans who still believed in Santos. In Bild, his opponent, Jefferson Farfan, getting man of the match, 1 out of 10. They do it the other way around, you see. Fanfares, anyway, for Farfan. In the Süddeutsche Zeitung, meanwhile, all sorts of excitement. Not only was this a great victory for Schalke, they say, it was a historic one too, because they've won in England in the Champions League for the first time ever. The paper say they were a bit underwhelmed by the atmosphere. Were there any English present? Asked their reporter. It seemed so quiet. We thought tea was being served. No, but Arsenal sure were. Anyway, continues the Süddeutsche Zeitung. Has there ever been a time like it, with Dortmund also winning, 2 German teams atop their group, and neither of them are named Bayern Munich? What a massive change, they say, from last year when Dortmund were ridiculed for their inexperience in the Champions League. Now they're beating Real Madrid's €600 million superstar squad. Well, Bild know the reason for that. They say Jurgen Klopp had a very simple tactic. He told his players in the dressing room, our roadmap for today is he who doesn't defend with his life is an asshole. Well, it worked. And unlike in Manchester, the players got their reward and Real got stuffed in the Ruhr. On that poetic note, and speaking of asses, let's get the Spanish view on all of that. Marca, well, they call it a big slip. Pepe, the guilty party there, head in hands. Ass, well, here's El Mundo first of all. Caput, Madrid, and ass. The aforementioned ass. 1 win in 24 games for Real in Germany. The curse is never ending. And inside, a great bit of editorial. Alemania, they say. The name is imposing, even if it sounds innocent, not like Kazakhstan or other countries whose names make you wrinkle your nose just to hear them. Bravely filling up the column inches, the editorial continues. Those who have gone to Germany have nothing to envy Hernan Cortés and the expedition to the Aztec Empire. Equally harsh conditions await, especially if you're from Madrid. Ooh. Well, of course, it'll be a different story back at the Bernabeu in a fortnight's time, but Real's defeat aside, it wasn't a bad week, really, for the Spanish. Barca won, a happy finish, as El Mundo coquettishly described it, with a splash up here. Celtic weren't unlucky, they say. Fortune comes to those who work. And alongside the big two, there was space as well for the team that Marca described as the best in Europe. Malaga, invincible, insatiable, the new queens of Europe, Malaga, as Marca point out. Only Porto, Man United, Barca and Malaga have gone 3 for 3 in the Champions League this year, and none of those other teams have scored as many goals as the side from the Costa without conceding any. Not bad for a club that almost went bust back in the summer. It's almost like there's a message in there this week about money not buying you Champions League success. Well, anyway, on that note, that's where we'll leave the papers for another 7 days. We'll be back next Friday with more. Do join us then.